Imagine you've been awake for 3 days. Not by choice, out of necessity. The temperature outside has dropped to freezing. Your chicks are hungry. And the only thing standing between them and death is you finding something, anything, in total darkness, without a single source of light, in a field where the wind carries dry leaves, branches, the sound of the entire world conspiring against you. Now imagine the only weapon you have is silence, not the absence of noise. Active silence. The ability to erase every sign of your existence while moving at 25 miles per hour, just 3 feet above the ground. That is what the long-eared owl does every night of its life. And the physical secret that makes it possible, something no other bird in the world possesses in quite the same way, is what will forever change how you look at the night sky. The long-eared owl, known scientifically as Asio otis, is one of the most fascinating and least understood nocturnal raptors in the Americas. It exists in that curious space between the familiar and the mysterious. You may have seen those intense yellow eyes in a photograph, or heard that low, deep call on a quiet country night. But what most people don't realize is that what makes this owl extraordinary isn't just its eyes, it's its feathers. In my years of birdwatching, few experiences have stayed with me the way the first time I watched a long-eared owl hunt. I expected movement. I expected the beat of wings. I expected some signal that something was happening. There was nothing. A shadow drifted between the trees as if it were part of the darkness itself, and when it landed on a branch less than 30 feet from me, the only sound that existed was my own racing heartbeat. Let's start with the most obvious feature, those ears. Except here's the first misconception. Those dark, pointed tufts on top of its head that we call ears have absolutely nothing to do with hearing. They're feathers, most likely used for visual communication, emotional expression, intimidation, camouflage among branches. The real ears of the long-eared owl are hidden on the sides of the skull, beneath the plumage, and they are positioned in a slightly asymmetrical way. Think about that for a moment. One ear positioned just a little higher than the other. This creates a microscopic difference in the time it takes sound to reach each side of the brain. And this owl's brain evolved to use exactly that fraction of a millisecond difference to triangulate the position of a moving mouse beneath a layer of snow, with surgical precision, in complete darkness. Researchers at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology have documented that owls of the Asio genus can locate prey by sound alone, without any visual reference, with a margin of error of less than 1 degree. To put that in perspective, a trained human marksman with a telescopic sight, well rested under ideal conditions, rarely achieves that kind of accuracy on a moving target. She does this every night, hungry, cold, sometimes with chicks waiting. If you're also fascinated by these hidden wonders of the bird world and want to better understand the creatures that share our space, consider subscribing to the channel and liking this video. That's how this story reaches more people who deserve to know it. But extraordinary hearing would be useless if the owl itself made noise when flying. And this is where we get to the heart of everything, the secret I promised to reveal. Most birds, when they beat their wings, produce a characteristic sound. You've heard the heavy flap of a pigeon taking off, the rapid flutter of a hummingbird, the tearing of air from a diving falcon. Those sounds exist because ordinary feathers create turbulence. Air passes over the edge of the feather and creates small vortices, and vortices make noise. The primary feathers of the long-eared owl have a structure that science took decades to fully understand. The leading edges of the feathers are serrated in a microscopic pattern, like the teeth of an extremely fine comb. This serration breaks up turbulence before it can form. It disperses the air into small, smooth flows instead of allowing it to build up and become sound. It is, in terms of acoustic engineering, a biological silencer. Aerospace engineers have studied this mechanism to develop quieter aircraft turbines and fan blades. The wind energy industry analyzes these owls' feathers to reduce turbine noise in populated landscapes. A bird weighing less than 11 ounces is teaching human engineering. But this gift comes at a cost. Silent feathers are more fragile feathers. The serrated structure that eliminates sound also makes each individual feather less resistant to wear. An eagle or a falcon can use their feathers longer. The long-eared owl must care for its plumage with an almost obsessive dedication. Hours each day of preening, aligning every barb of every feather to maintain the integrity of the silencer. And during molt, the period when old feathers fall out and new ones grow, it loses some of that ability. For weeks, it flies a little louder, hunts a little less efficiently, loses prey that would normally never escape. Humanize that for a moment. Imagine that your most precious gift, the ability that defines who you are and what you can do, needs to be rebuilt from scratch every year. That there's a period when you're vulnerable, less capable, less yourself, and you can't stop. You still have to hunt. You still have to feed those who depend on you. She does that every season, without a choice. Speaking of which, Have you ever been lucky enough to hear or spot a long-eared owl near where you live? Tell me in the comments. Every sighting report is a window into understanding where these birds are still finding space to live, and that matters deeply to everyone working in conservation. The long-eared owl's social life holds one more surprise for anyone who pictures owls as solitary, cold creatures. During winter, when prey grows scarce, they gather in communal roosts. Groups of up to 200 individuals sleeping together during the day, pressed into dense trees, sharing collective warmth. Territorial rivals that during breeding season would never tolerate each other sleep side by side when survival demands it. There is something deeply moving about that image. These solitary hunters, highly territorial, masters of invisibility, choose, when the world gets hard enough, to find each other, to come together, to share the warmth that none of them could sustain alone. And in spring, when the cold retreats, each one returns to its silence. During breeding season, the male performs a display flight that few humans have ever had the privilege of witnessing, a spiraling, descending dive in which he claps his wings below his body in an audible crack, like applause. It is the only moment he wants to be heard, the only moment silence is intentionally traded for presence. Think of how many of us hide for months behind our own invisibility, at work, in relationships, in routine, and only reveal who we are when we find someone worth the exposure. We return now to the loop I opened at the beginning, the physical secret no other bird possesses in quite the same way. Here it is. The long-eared owl's feathers are not simply soft or well-fitted, they are architected. Each filament evolved over millions of years to eliminate the signal of its own existence while it acts. It is not silent because it is still. It is silent while completely in motion, completely alive, completely focused. And the emotional cost of that, if we can call it that, is that perfection demands constant maintenance. That being extraordinary at what you do is not a permanent state. It is a daily practice, a continuous rebuilding. Those of us who watch birds sometimes forget that. We look at an owl in flight and see effortless elegance. But what we're really seeing is the result of hours of care, months of adaptation, a lifetime of precision earned feather by feather. The next time a night outside goes very quiet, quieter than it should, don't assume nothing is happening. Something may be happening in absolute perfection, precisely because you cannot hear it. Have you ever had an experience with owls, any species, that stayed with you? A sighting, a sound, a moment when you realized you were being watched before you were watching? Tell me below. I read every comment and every story you share reminds me why all of this is so worth doing. Take care and happy bird watching.